Well, hi. So I'm just feeling really honored to have been invited to give this talk on the amazingness of quantum physics and how it has everything to do with what's happening in our world. And, as far as who I am, I mean, that is the question that all of us are really being asked. And, well, I'm Paul, and I'll just leave it at that for now. And quantum physics came into the world and into our mind about a century ago. And it is being called the greatest discovery ever in all of history in the realm of science. That I don't know anybody who studies it who doesn't agree with that statement. The controversy is, what does it mean? There's like so many different perspectives, and people are just not in agreement, let's put it that way, about the meaning of it. And so I just wrote a book about quantum physics, pointing out that it's a revelation, a modern day revelation, the likes of which we've never encountered in our lifetime. And it's a revelation that actually is offering us the medicine for the illness, the psychological, spiritual illness that has infected the human species. And I'll be explaining that. And the idea of it being a revelation, people have been saying, oh, well, quantum physics, it's not a complete theory. It's not the revelation isn't complete. And I feel split about that because on the one hand, no, the revelation of quantum physics is a revelation, and it's com completely complete, as much as we could ever imagine, because what it's revealing to us the dreamlike nature of reality. It's revealing to us that we are having a collectively shared dream. And that just like in a night dream, if we recognize the nature of our circumstance, i.e., that we're dreaming and we can then have a lucid dream, the same thing is available to us in the waking dream. But where the revelation is incomplete, that is quantum physics as being the revelation, is that we could be having the most amazing thing that's being revealed to us, but if we don't recognize it and take it in, then it's an incomplete revelation. In other words, we play a key role in incarnating the revelation that is quantum physics. So to take a step back, it might be helpful to really understand what quantum physics is about. So to create context, quantum physics came into our world early 1900s. Before then, physicists were studying this universe, trying to understand how it worked, but they were conceiving of the universe as being objective and as being separate from themselves. And they just conceived of themselves as being these witnesses, these passive witnesses who are trying to understand what is the nature of this universe. And then, now keep in mind, I'm no physicist at all. Like if I get a physics book and it has, equations and math, I just close it. That's not my thing. But what is my thing is that over 40 years ago, I began having these unbelievably out of ordinary experiences that were completely impossible, at least according to how I had been conditioned and programmed to think. And stuff was happening that could only happen in dreams that weren't supposed to be happening in reality, but they were happening, and they were happening on a somewhat regular basis. And particularly when I was meeting my teachers, it was like when I was in their field, the whole third dimensional space-time continuum would just warp and stuff would happen that was supposedly impossible. And it was very sort of, disorienting at first. I was in my early to mid 20s. Then I came across quantum physics over the years. And as I began to study quantum physics, I began to realize, oh my God, they're describing the universe that I had fallen into, this dreamlike universe. Okay, so here is the classical physicists that before quantum physics came on the scene, the Newtonian physicists, like I've been saying, they were thinking they were studying this objective world. And then quantum physics came along and it empirically proved again and again, there's no such thing as an objective world. That's a nonsensical idea that only exists as an idea in our mind with no correlate in reality. And to even explicate that a little bit more, what quantum physics discovered, empirically proved again and again and again, is that the act of observing this universe actually influences the universe observed. Okay, that's the rabbit hole that I go down in my book, because that is a description of a dream. So the point is that quantum physics has discovered the dreamlike nature, but your typical academically trained corporate physicists are not prepared to recognize the full extent of the revelation that quantum physics is freely offering us. That's not what they signed up for when they went to graduate school. And so here I am, not a physicist at all, and pointing out, well, this whole controversy about what does quantum physics mean? I have my own answer to that I think is worth considering. And that's what I'll be offering today. Now, one of the big things in quantum physics is the real cutting edge quantum physicists are basically all saying the same thing. They're saying, we haven't really gotten to the central idea. What is the central idea? And this idea is going to be so simple that we imagine it can be expressed on a t-shirt and that everybody will be able to understand it. And the image that they use, they say, imagine if you're in a forest and you come across an automobile and you've never seen an automobile. And you're trying to figure out what is this for? And you turn on the turn signal or the lights or the radio or the windshield wipers. And it's amazing, it's great, but you haven't figured out the central idea of the automobile. That's what the quantum physicists are saying. We haven't figured out. We've developed, it's already changed the course of history, all the technology, lasers and atomic energy and computers and transistors and on and on and on. And these physicists are saying that's the low-hanging fruit. That the real benefit of quantum physics is going to be found within our minds. It's going to change our thinking. It's going to expand our consciousness. That's the real benefit of quantum physics. Okay. And so here I'm basically saying, well, just stay with what the foundation, in the two-slit experiment, the famous two-slit experiment, which it holographically encoded in that experiment is the totality of the quantum gnosis. And that was the experiment in which they discovered that the act of observing the subatomic particle actually influenced the way it manifested, that consciousness all of a sudden had intruded into the physics lab, and the physicists weren't overly happy about it, but they couldn't get rid of it. And for years, they tried to change theories and axioms and just to get rid of consciousness, which is being called like the skeleton in the physics closet, but there was no getting rid of it. It had to be factored into the equation of reality. And so when you go down that rabbit hole of, the act of observing this universe actually influences the universe observed, what does that mean? That means that the act of perceiving, the act of observation is creative. Okay. And when you realize that, it opens up something in the core of your being, because then you begin to realize, wait, the way, just let's stay with science for a second, the way they set up the experiment, the questions they asked, the way they interpreted data actually determined the answer they got back in the experiment. So the way that we interpret the waking ink blot of our experience We're the ones who are generating meaning that we impute onto the inkblot actually determines our experience. So in other words, quantum physics is actually showing us that we are actually creating our experience of ourselves and our experience of the world. No one else is doing that. Whatever's happening is happening. We then impute meaning on what's happening, thereby creating our sense of who we are, our experience, and our sense of the world. When you have that realization, it's as if it takes off this lid on the bottle containing inner bottle of our incredible creative spirit. Because you begin to realize that each and every moment we are actually in a way co-creating with the universe, that our nature is to be creative. Okay, now I'm just going to take a step back because I want to tie something else in. I've written 3 books about, there's this mind virus. The indigenous Native American people call it the Wetiko mind virus. And I posit in these books that this mind virus is at the very root of our collective madness and of the incredible evil that we are playing out in the world. And if people hear about a mind virus and they think, oh, that's all woo-woo and new agey, well, all that really means is that the idea of a mind virus is that the origin and the solution of our collective madness is to be found within the psyche. And that's a no-brainer. Where else in the world could the origin and the solution of our madness be found but in our psyche? Okay, now I want to describe this mind virus because quantum physics is the cure, is the medicine, is the antidote for the mind virus. Okay, so here's a succinct description of this mind virus. It operates through the projective tendencies of our mind, through our blind spots. It's a form of blindness that doesn't know it's blind and thinks it's sighted. And what it does, think about in a dream. If you're in a night dream, let's invoke our imagination. If you're holding a viewpoint in the night dream will instantaneously reflect back your viewpoint because the night dream is nothing other than a reflection of your mind. So say you're holding a viewpoint. Say, for example, in that night dream, the viewpoint is, oh, this universe I'm in is objective and solid and separate from me. Well, being a dream, which is once again just a projection of the mind, a reflection of the mind, if you're holding a viewpoint that the world you're inhabiting is objective and separate, it will manifest confirming your viewpoint. It will actually manifest as appearing to be objective and solid and separate from you. Now you have the evidence confirming the accuracy and the truth of your viewpoint, that this universe you're in is actually objective. So you get even more fixed in that viewpoint. And the more fixed in that viewpoint of seeing the world objectively, the more the universe will just reflect back, confirming your viewpoint, giving you all the proof you need ad infinitum. That's a feedback loop whose origin is within your own mind. And what I'm describing is that you've put yourself under a spell. You've hypnotized yourself by your own creative genius. That's Wetiko. That's the mind virus. To the extent we're not awake, we've fallen under the spell of our own creative genius. And Wetiko, this mind virus, see, in every spiritual tradition, they talk about it. And for example, in the apocryphal text, it's called the counterfeiting spirit. And they describe this counterfeiting spirit as, well, it has no creativity at all, but it impersonates us. It puts us on, which is to fool us, but it offers us a false version of ourselves. Oh, I'm traumatized. And if we identify with its false version, then the mind virus has us. Then it can manipulate us and control us. Now, just think about what I just described. We actually identify with who we're not. We identify with the mind virus's false version of ourselves. we forget who we are. You see, this mind virus can't steal our soul. It tricks us into giving our soul away. And then we disconnect from our nature, from our creative nature. That's a recipe for madness. That's the Watiko mind virus. That's the diagnosis for the collective malady that our species is suffering from. And quantum physics is offering us the medicine. Because quantum physics, in showing, not just showing, in proving that there's nothing objective, I just want to invite us to go down that rabbit hole together. When you have a realization that there's nothing objective, what happened to the subject? Which is me, right? If I'm a subject, I need an object to be in relationship to in order to be a subject. But if all of a sudden, you see, because quantum physics has proven there's no separate things that are interacting, that this universe is quantum on all scales, not just the microstructure, because quantum physics was first trying to understand what are the building blocks of this universe. And as they went more and more down in scale, they didn't find anything physical. They didn't find matter. They found mind. They found consciousness. And they found that this universe is quantum through and through, not just in the really small, but in the macro too. And so going, just unfolding that process, when you realize if there's nothing objective and the quantum universe, there's no separate things interacting, it's all one seamless, interconnected quantum whole system with no separation to be found anywhere. There's no separate things at all. It's all, everything is interdependent and interconnected and part of a greater whole, which is quantum in nature. When you realize there's nothing objective, like I'm saying, what happened to the subject? Because you discover that the subjective experience of being an ego in third dimensional space-time, I need an object to be in relationship to, that they mutually reinforce each other. The experience of there being an objective world and the experience of me being a subject reciprocally co-arise and reciprocally reinforce each other. That's the illusion. And the origin of that illusion is to be found within our minds. So what I'm pointing out is that when you then shed light on that there's nothing objective out there, then all of a sudden it adds light. It asks the question, well, wait a second, who am I in all of this? And some of the greatest quantum physicists have been saying that the real core of what science is about is shedding light on who am I? Who are we? And quantum physics unwittingly has promoted itself to be a spiritual path because it's shedding light on the nature of who we are. And by being a spiritual path, what does that mean? Well, the archetypal spiritual path, it's shedding light on that we're interconnected and interdependent. That's what quantum physics is doing. It's helping us to see through the illusion that we exist in a way that we don't, that we experience ourselves to the extent we put ourselves under a spell as being a separate self. And there's no separate anything. That I only exist in relation to you and the rest of the universe. And you don't exist as a separate, intrinsically, independently existing objective self, except you exist relative to the whole rest of the universe. There's no separate self to be found anywhere. You see, so quantum physics is actually helping us to remember our nature. Okay, now when I say there's nothing objective, I'll give you an example. See, quantum physics, one of the cutting edges of quantum physics now is called quantum contextuality, that context is everything. And this has implications in the real world, right? Like say if there's like a conflict between two people or between two countries or war. Oh, that group shot a rocket to the other group. Oh, they're bad for doing that. Well, that might be true, but how come they did that? Well, maybe they're being, you know, whatever, just having violence done to them, and that's their response. And then if you start the story in a different place, you have a different meaning. Context is everything. So the example that I want to use to explain the profundity of quantum contextuality, a number of years ago, I was actively painting, as an artist. And I remember there was a painting I made where I put down this gray color. And then as the painting unfolded, I put down blue next to the gray. And the gray no longer looked gray, it was purple. Well, the question is, well, what is the objective color? Is it objectively gray or is it objectively purple? Well, the color doesn't, quantum physics is saying, yeah, the quality, the color in this case doesn't exist, doesn't inhere in the external object. The color is an experience you're having in your mind. Your mind is interacting with the seeming painting in this example to create the subjective experience, be it gray or purple. But the question, what is the objective color, is meaningless in quantum physics. Or another example, I'm in Portland, in Oregon, a lot of rain, a lot of rainbows, quite often. Well, quantum physics will use a rainbow as an example of the nature of this universe. Think about what a rainbow is. There are three factors. There's water, light, and a mind or consciousness. When those three factors come together, we have an experience of a rainbow. But there's no objective rainbow. If we think, oh no, there's a rainbow out there and it really exists separate from our consciousness, there's an objective rainbow. No, that's completely a nonsensical idea. Our experience of a rainbow, we are having an image inside of our mind. That's the nature of our experience. There's no objective rainbow. Quantum physics and Tibetan Buddhism says the exact same thing. That's the nature of our physical universe. Just like that rainbow doesn't exist objectively, it's just an image in our mind. Same thing with the objective universe. So this helps us maybe a little bit to understand what quantum physics is pointing out. And this is a description of the dreamlike nature. Because I'm not saying that, oh, this is sort of, in a metaphorical way, this is like a dream. No, I'm saying, and this was based on the experience that I began having 40 plus years ago, that this is a dream. This is a collective dream. We all have this incredibly, unimaginably vast creative genius and agency, and we're dreaming up our dream into materialization together collectively each and every moment, but we don't realize that we're doing it. So then, because we're unconscious of our intrinsic creative power, then it's manifesting in a way that's killing us, like we see evidenced all over the world today. Okay, now quantum physics, one of the main points I make in the book is that quantum physics is a modern day analog to, you can think of it as a hidden treasure. In Tibet, they have the word terma, and terma translates as hidden treasures. And actually, there's a tradition. I'm one of the people who does practice in this tradition that keeps itself fresh over the generations by all of a sudden this discovery of these hidden treasures, of these terma. And this is a mind-blowing phenomena. It's a real thing. It's not just a fairy tale. Scholars study this stuff. And one way of understanding it, think about if the community gets a little bit stale or one-sided or dogmatic or asleep, all of a sudden a terma will be discovered, a hidden treasure with a particular practice or prayer or mantra or blessed object or, visualization or something that when the community then brings this into their practice, it brings them back to themselves. It dispels the one-sidedness. And a way of understanding that is think about when we have a dream. Your dreams are manifestations of the unconscious. They're compensatory. They compensate a one-sidedness. So if I'm one-sided, my unconscious will present as symbols, symbols being the language of dreams. And if I get in resonance with the symbol, then I get brought back from being one-sided back to my center. And then I can continue my awakening. Okay, that's a way of understanding these hidden treasures. So, and also it's very archetypal that when it's a known thing that in times of darkness, whether it's in our night dreams or in our lives, and we are experiencing a time of great darkness right now, typically that's when revelatory phenomena emerge, right? So what I'm pointing out is that we as a species have dreamed up quantum physics into the world and into our minds as a hidden treasure. And quantum physics is a purely symbolic procedure, just like symbols are the language of dreams. And what I'm trying to point out, that the central idea of quantum physics that will resolve the whole controversy about what does it mean, because quantum physics is like this magical talisman. It's like this magic wand that's descended from the heavens. And there's all this fighting of what does it mean? But if people bring up the metaphysical, philosophical, what is the meaning of it? Typically, they're told, just shut up and calculate. That's the phrase. But there were thankfully some physicists who actually were like, no, yeah, we can solve our equations and develop this incredible technology, but what does it mean that this heavenly magical wand has fallen into our laps free of charge? What's that about? What does it mean? And here I'm pointing out, well, a way to resolve that dilemma, that conflict of what is the meaning of quantum physics, is to see it as a modern day analog to a hidden treasure, to a terma. It is literally showing us that we are having a collective dream and that each one of us have this unbelievable, unimaginable creative agency and power. And particularly when we come together with other people who are also awakening to our creative power, we can change the dream, the waking dream. And that's to step into our own evolutionary process. That's what this is all about. That's what quantum physics is literally showing us, you know. But it's an incomplete revelation because it needs us to recognize what is being revealed, you know. I mean, I think of Einstein. Einstein was one of the founding fathers of quantum physics, but he could never embrace it. He said, if quantum physics is true, well, that's the end of science. Well, quantum physics has never been proven to be wrong in any way. And I'm of the opinion that where Einstein, he still was attached to that there was a physical universe separate out there from our consciousness of that universe. He would typically ask you, do you mean to tell me if when they're looking at the moon and if we look away, the moon doesn't exist? And just notice the similarity to the Zen koan. If a tree falls in a forest and there's no one there to hear it, is it going to make a sound? Well, think about that rainbow. Think about that gray color in my painting. What is the nature of that sound? That sound is a phenomena in our mind. If there's no mind to experience that tree falling, what happened to the sound? So this is where quantum physics is really kind of going into a real spiritual direction, in that it's showing us our nature. Now, just getting back to this mind virus. So the mind virus, we've entranced ourselves by our creative genius to think this world objectively exists. Quantum physics comes along and it's showing us, wait, if there's nothing objective, well, then who am I as the subject? And it's actually helping us to see through the illusion of the separate self and the realization, that realization, the energetic of it is love, is compassion. And how weird is that, that I'm talking about science and love and compassion in the same breath? Because when you discover that you don't exist in the way that you've been conditioned and programmed to, i.e., as a separate self, and that, wait a second, I'm interconnected with everyone and everything. I'm interdependent. We all are on each other for our own survival. What is the expression of that realization? It's compassion. So the idea is not just intellectually, but to really take kind of online into our minds what quantum physics is actually showing us. Like I'm saying, it's a revelation, but it's incomplete if we don't recognize what it's a revelation of. It's a revelation of our nature. You know, it unlocks this incredible creative agency because what he called the mind virus, to the extent we're not conscious of our creativity, it plugs into our own creativity and turns it against us. But when we actually, you see, and the antidote for the mind virus is to be creative. To the extent we're not creative, the mind virus plugs into our creativity, like I'm saying, turning it against us. That's why it's so profoundly important to be creative. You see, the greatest protection against the mind virus is to be in touch with the self, with our nature. In Buddhism, it's called our true nature. Well, great, fantastic. But what does that even mean? That's such a cliche. Well, what is the nature of our true nature? Our nature, by its very nature, is creative. What that means is when you have realization of your nature, you embody being creative. You express yourself creatively. And the more you do that, the deeper you realize your nature in a positive feedback loop that creates light upon light in a world of darkness. So quantum physics, the revelation that is quantum physics, when we take it in and see through the illusion of the separate self, David Bohm calls this an illusion generating an illusion. This is the primary illusion that generates a whole host of infinite illusions. And quantum physics is offering us the medicine for that. It's showing us who we are, our creative nature, our relationship to the universe, that the universe isn't separate in any way, that we are not separate from each other. That's what I mean when I say quantum physics is offering us the medicine for the very malady that ails our species. Now, it's to say it's a radical insight. What quantum physics has discovered is like a huge understatement. When a discovery like quantum physics is made, it typically takes a number of centuries to really first begin to wrap our minds around what is being disclosed to us, what is being revealed. And so we are in the beginning stages of really trying to integrate and understand what quantum physics is showing us. So by saying there's no things, there's no separate things, everything is one seamlessly interconnected whole, quantum physics has discovered that everything is a process. And including ourselves, that the universe is a work in process, as are we. And quantum physics is offering us, it's showing us, wow, when we come together with each other with this realization of whether you say the dreamlike nature or we've unlocked our creative spirit, or we're recognizing the interconnectedness and cultivating love and compassion, that instantaneously feeds into the underlying quantum field. Because one of the key things of quantum physics is entanglement and non-locality, that this universe is not bound by what we conceive of as third dimensional space and time, where there's like a speed limit to light. No, quantum physics has empirically proven again and again that subatomic particles on different, completely opposite ends of the universe are able to communicate with each other instantaneously in no time at all, faster than the speed of light. That every part of the universe is interconnected with every other part. That's really interesting, because another thing that quantum physics has discovered, when I say the dreamlike nature, is that mind and matter, which are you can conceive of as being polar opposites, are not separate. Okay, this kind of maybe helps a little bit to understand when we have these synchronistic experiences, where all of a sudden an inner state that's happening inside of our psyche gets expressed via an outer event in a way that just can expand our mind. Because quantum physics is actually showing us that deep down, when you go, because the whole idea was trying to find out what is the microstructure of this universe, of this physical world. And like I was saying, they didn't find anything physical, they found consciousness. That consciousness infused and infuses every atom and molecule and iota of empty space, and everything and anything is infused and not separate from consciousness. And of course, you're a typical scientific materialist, physicist will hear that and just go wild and, disagree and, accuse me of all sorts of things, new age woo-woo stuff. And I want to bring up a Tibetan terma, that hidden treasure. And one of the terma that was found in a text, I think centuries ago, and I've essentialized the terma in 4 words. The actual terma says, as a thing is viewed, so it appears. And I've essentialized it into as viewed, so appears. And just remember, quantum physics is a modern day analog to a terma. So think about being in a dream, right? And just to remember too, what does the word Buddha means? The word Buddha literally means he who has woken up to the dreamlike nature. That's what Buddha actually, that's the etymology, that's the meaning of the word. So if you're in a dream, as viewed, so appears. If you view the universe in a certain way, just like think of it like an ink blot. What is a dream? A dream is a projection of the mind. If you project onto that ink blot a butterfly, it's not like one moment you're gonna, project the butterfly and you'll see, you're gonna, as viewed, you'll view the ink blot as a butterfly and 2 seconds later it appears. No, the viewing and appearing simultaneous happens in no time. Okay, so say if you're in a night dream and you project onto that ink blot, instantaneously, as viewed, so appears. Now you have evidence, like I was saying before, confirming your viewpoint. You've put yourself under a spell. No one else has done that. You have done that by your own unrealized creative genius. So what I would now, as viewed, so appears, is so profound an equation of how we create reality that if somebody says, no, that's BS, as viewed, so appears is not true, well, then the whole universe will manifest giving you all the evidence that it's not true. And you don't realize that it's actually confirming its profundity. Whereas you might think, oh, you see, it's not true. I have all the evidence I need. That's what's afflicting these scientific materialists, scientists. The creative genius of their own mind, they've hypnotized themselves. And, that's why when somebody like me is coming out with no credentials at all, saying, hey, quantum physics is a revelation unlike anything we've ever seen, and it's revealing to us the dreamlike nature. And when enough of us realize that, we can actually, help each other to deepen our lucidity, deepen our compassion, recognize our interconnectedness, unlock our creative genius, and consciously step into our own evolution and change the dream. And that's what's available to us. Now, to give you an example of quantum physics, they were, like I've been saying, trying to find what are the elementary, what is the real deep down microstructure of this universe. And they came up with the idea of like elementary particle would be one of the ways of saying it. And, that make up the whole universe, the physical world, including ourselves, including our mind. Well, what is the nature of an elementary particle? Well, quantum physics says, just imagine these elementary particles exist in a state of potential in any and every possible state they could ever exist in, up until the very moment that they're observed. And the moment that that elementary particle is observed, one of those possibilities actualizes and all the other possibilities vaporize into parallel universes. And the very next moment, the same thing happens. There's infinite, or whatever all the possibilities that elementary particle can next manifest. Then we observe and the wave function collapses and it actualizes into one particular form. Well, what that means is mind-blowing, because what that means is that even if one of those possibilities is ridiculously and highly, this is the quote, improbable, it could even manifest in this very moment. Okay. And what that means is that even the possibility that humanity, that enough of us potentially awakening to our nature, to the dreamlike nature, to our interconnectedness, to the quantum, whatever you call it, a lot of different names pointing at the same thing. Quantum physics is saying, oh, that could be this very next moment. That's within the realm of possibility. And if you're not envisioning that, then what in the world are you thinking? Okay. So it gives us real hope when you really take in, like, for example, one modern day quantum physicist, Fuchs, Christopher Fuchs, calls quantum, he describes quantum physics. He says, yes, quantum physics is what makes life worth living. That's a quote. Another quantum physicist from way back when said, yeah, when I get depressed, my two go-tos, I listen to Beethoven or I study quantum physics. See, quantum physics, it's a natural antidepressant. Because the great danger right now is things are so scary and dark and dangerous to get absorbed in pessimism and despair. And then if we hold that viewpoint being a dream, we're going to attract all the evidence confirming that viewpoint, which will just, in a feedback loop, we just are taking ourselves down. And then we can't be of help to anyone. Then we're part of the problem. But if we actually take in the quantum gnosis that's freely available to all of us, then in a way, we don't have to proselytize or evangelize or whatever the word is. We just embody. And quantum physics, the biggest chapter in my book, I think, is the everyday world of quantum physics. Because these physicists are saying, we experience the quantum way more than we experience classical physics. I'll give you an example, a specific example that happened to me. A number of years ago, I had this girlfriend. We were living together. We were together like, I don't know, 10 years. And then we broke up. But we were still in the same house. And one morning I was sleeping and she had a question that she wanted to ask me, but she was afraid of the answer I was going to give. She was afraid I was going to say no. And I remember this really clearly. It made such an impression. So I'm sleeping in the morning. She had already woken up and she woke me up to ask me the question. And the way she asked the question, it like woke up the part of me that was going to say no, because that was who she was expecting me to be. And so then as soon as I said no, I could see that confirmed in her mind, oh yeah, Paul is this like shadowy guy or whatever. And but I was tripping out on that afterwards because I realized, oh wow, there were like there was the part of me that would gladly have said yes, but she didn't wake up that part. She woke up the part she was afraid was going to manifest that was going to say no. You see, and that's an example how quantum physics interfaces and interact. We're continually interacting with the quantum via our relationships, you know, in the sense that think about we all have, this multiplicity of selves, sort of like these transparencies that are overlaid on each other. And, when you meet somebody who really sees you in your highest and they invoke the highest part of you. But if you meet somebody who's like projecting the shadow on you and you're like embodying a shadowy figure, when you get together with them, they're going to see you through the lens of that shadow. So they're going to unconsciously invoke, not that they're causing you to manifest in a shadowy way, but they're making it more probable that that's the part of you that's going to manifest because that's who they're in relationship to. And then as soon as you manifest in that shadowy way, it's confirming to them, oh, that is who Paul is. He's this shadowy guy. And to the extent that you're doing the same to them, in other words, we are always dreaming up our unconscious in relationships, which can create real trouble and problems and separation, in which we're just enacting our unhealed abuse. Or if we recognize that, that becomes the portal to like actually to liberate our unintegrated trauma. But it's all quantum in nature. And what quantum physics does to space and time, I mean, on the one hand, these physicists are pointing out that space-time, it does not have objective existence, like our conceptions of space and our conceptions of time are just that, they're constructs of the mind. That before quantum physics, we thought about space as being this empty container in which all the action happens. And quantum physics has discovered, no, space is a major part of the action. That there is like, in Buddhism, they talk about the emptiness out of which all the forms arise. And the emptiness is form is emptiness. That's the Heart Sutra. And, and quantum physics is discovered the same thing, that the plenum, which is the correlate to the emptiness in Buddhism, it's not a nothingness, but it's an overflowing fullness. In his work, Jung calls this the pleroma, the plenum, or the emptiness. They're all equivalent terms. And the idea being that the emptiness out of which forms arise is not separate, but interpenetrate. They're not two separate things that are interacting. And all of a sudden you see, because quantum physics is revealing a whole universe, there's no separation anywhere. For us to see it, it necessitates us to get in touch with our own wholeness, our own nature. And getting back to space-time, what quantum physics has done to our notion of time, it's almost like inconceivable, because there have been these experiments. So we typically, I think our species is suffering from, one could call it a linear time spell. We've fallen under the spell of linear time, thinking that time progresses in one direction from past to the present to the future. But quantum physics is actually, in a way that I can't wrap my mind around fully, but I have some sense of it. Quantum physics is saying, well, just like we think of the past, that however the present is manifesting is caused by what happened in the past, quantum physics is saying, well, but it's also caused by the future. That the future, in a way, reaches back in time and is influencing the way the present manifests, sort of maybe not quite the same, but just like we think of the past causing the present. And quantum physics is pointing out that the present is the place where the past and the future shake hands. that they're holographically encoded. In other words, the past and the future are somehow holographically encoded in the present moment. And that we've been entrained thinking that there's this thing called linear time. But that's only one aspect of the weirdness of what quantum physics has done to time, because there have been experiments that have shown this. I mean, on the one hand, there's the famous two-slit experiment, the double slit experiment, but there have even been other thought experiments that have shown that the act of observing that the past, for example, quantum physics is saying, no, it's not complete. We think, oh, the past has already happened. Quantum physics then says, well, the way we observe the past in this moment, in the present moment, actually determines what we can say about the past. As if in this moment, when we observe the past, that seems to influence something that's already happened. And that's mind-boggling. My conceptual intellectual mind can't even begin to understand how that could be. But here, quantum physics, that's part of the weirdness of quantum physics. And with all this weirdness, the more I study it, the more that I realize these physicists are saying, no, this isn't going away. Because a lot of physicists are trying to like, oh, it's not a complete theory. And the subtext is, oh yeah, we have to, make it a more of a complete theory to make the weirdness go away. Well, then there are the real, cutting edge quantum physicists are saying, no, it's not going away. The strangeness that quantum physics is showing us, that's part of the nature of this universe. And that was part of the problem that Einstein was having. He just couldn't embrace the incredible, like over the top strangeness and weirdness. But like when you begin to recognize that there's no objective world out there separate from the mind that's observing it, then all of a sudden the weirdness makes a lot more sense because you begin to realize the dreamlike nature. And you're part of the dream. You're being dreamed up by the universe, and concurrently you're dreaming up the universe in a simultaneous, synchronistic, sort of cybernetic feedback loop with no separate self anywhere. Okay. So in conclusion, because I could just go on forever, I think you guys probably get the idea. I just think about this all day, and it's like a psychedelic. It's like taking a psychedelic that's time release, and that just keeps on coming on. Like I wrote one book on quantum physics, came out in 2018. I thought, okay, great, I'm all good. I wrote my quantum physics book. And then I just kept on getting more and more downloads. That's why the new version just came out. And I'll probably have another version in a couple of years because it's endless. It's like tapping into this plenum. It's like tapping into the creative source of the universe, And just remember, the medicine for the mind virus is to be creative. Quantum physics is a revelation showing us our creative agency and power. But it will do no good and be of no benefit unless we recognize what's being revealed. But if we recognize what's being revealed and take it in, we become transformed. We all of a sudden are able to tap in to our creative genius in a way where we can express it not just creatively, but constructively instead of destructively. To close, say if somebody came into my office and shared with me a dream that they were having, and the dream was exactly what's happening on planet Earth. That, oh, there was, these dark forces and fascism is creeping all over the world, and the pandemic, whether you think it was real or not, or then, Trump and Biden and Putin and Ukraine and Israel and Middle East and all these nightmares. And they shared with me the dream, and the dream is exactly what's happening now, but say they had it as a night dream. And they come to me and they say, well, how would you interpret this dream? What does this dream mean? And I would say to them, And keep in mind, the dream is the dream of humanity, but I'm just doing a thought experiment here. Imagine if it's one person, and by taking in the dream, I would say, well, clearly the dream is giving you a message. It's showing you what you need to do. And what you need to do is to consciously connect with your creative agency, because you clearly haven't connected with your creative nature. You've outsourced your own creative authority, and the powers of the state or external powers are more than happy to plug into your own creative power and turn it against you. And that's what's getting expressed in that night dream. And so the night dream is like manifesting that way. And if you don't get the message, it'll just recur and recur in typically amplified form until you get the message. And then there's no need for the recurring dream. And we are having a recurring dream as a human species. And the imagination I have, because I can feel like this is a recurring dream. We've been here before. We've been here many, many times, where here we are on planet Earth and we blow ourselves up and we destroy the human species. And then being a dream, where there's no time in a dream, 14 billion years is a blink of an eye. And then here we are again, given the same opportunity. Boom, we blow ourselves up. Will this be the time that we don't have to just have the compulsion to blow ourselves up and destroy ourselves? Could this be the time that we're having that recurring dream, where we actually get the message and recognize what's being revealed via events in our world, via the revelation that is quantum physics, and we actually wake up to our nature, we wake up to our interconnectedness, we unlock our creativity, we get in touch with our creative genius, we recognize the dreamlike nature, we connect with other people who are also awakening, and we realize we can dream ourselves awake, that we can dream the dream differently. That's what quantum physics is offering us. And it's up to us, no one else. It's up to us. If we recognize what's being revealed, quantum physics is a living revelation, the likes of which we've never experienced. And it's freely offered to us. And what my work is about is trying to help people to open up their eyes and see what's being revealed. And when you see that, you will never be the same.